Call your sponsor.
Call you sponsor.
Call your sponsor.
Bitch, call your sponsor.
Welcome back to Bitch Call Your Sponsor. I'm Sam.
And I'm Misty.
Hi, Misty. Shall we do our primary purpose?
Let's.
Our primary purpose
is for
Misty and Sam to grow their friendship and maybe help others. So the topic I am bringing to us today is hope versus optimism. I have never really enjoyed either of those words, but I'm taking a liking to hope based on this new definition that I came across. So I'm going to read it. So this is from Arthur C. Brooks, who is from Harvard and has been studying happiness for the past, I think, 25 years. Optimism is the belief that things will turn out all right. Hope makes no such assumption, but is a conviction that one can act to make things better in some way. So optimism for me, sometimes I think like in program, there can be this like toxic, spiritual bypass, like slap some gratitude on it, which for me is like kind of like the optimism piece. I kind of like those kind of like intersect in my brain or merge into one thing. But this hope piece, I guess the reason why I didn't really like it initially, because it's focused on the future versus now. But I do identify with this definition in the sense of like, I didn't know or think that I could stay sober and or what it actually looked like until I came to the rooms and saw people with sobriety and that were sane and that were believable, that like, oh, well, maybe I can do this. So I'll leave it there and see if anything's coming up for you.
Yeah, I really like this. I can't tell from the quote whether they're for hope or optimism. Can you help me with that?
Yeah, so he is totally for hope because his whole thing is about agency. Like we can actually take action that will impact how we are, versus like it's this mind thing where it's like, oh, just it's a belief, versus this action is, I think, the distinction that the definition brings up.
It's interesting. It's making me think of a couple of things. One is I remember feeling so good about hope when Obama was running, and then somebody said something about, well, hope isn't real, or I don't know. They just really smashed my belief about the word hope, and I was like, okay, thanks for that. So I like this way better because I am a big believer in we can change our destiny. So like some people believe that it's God's will. It's all plotted out. Nothing you think, say, or do can change it. And you're on the course that you're supposed to be on. And I believe that like everything I think, say, or do does affect the course that I'm on, or the course that I'm in right now, the now of it all.
Yeah, it's, we'll go into this. I think it's a later topic that I thought of, which is, karma, where every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, And so I think for me coming into recovery, it was like, okay, so what are these actions? And, at first it was like the halt and like not drinking today, like not picking up the drink today, which is, still the goal, like for me is like, regardless how much time or whatever, it's like that always is my headline, because I can't deal with all the other stuff if I'm to the level that I've been able to, if I'm not sober.
Right.
Um, so the other side of this is like this future thing where it's like, I think a lot of, for me, a lot of the experience of applying these principles in all my affairs, tends to get me out of my brain, and more into my body and more into the present, the stories become less activated, or they actually change the stories and narratives that I continue to believe in, or whatever, based on actual facts. Like I was thinking recently to my ninth step, and my mother, in having that conversation, I was brought into actual reality where I was like, oh yeah, like all the shit that I thought was true, was some of it was fancied. It wasn't 100.
Like what? I love a real life example.
So, like, I never realized how much she worried about me. I thought she didn't care about me. That was my narrative, right? And when I said, "Is there anything left?" She said, "Yeah, I found it so hard, to say no to you, when I was like, Mom, I need more money." Like, I was the youngest kid. So I pulled that string, like, "I can't believe you're only giving me this much." Like, and she was like, a woman that worked very hard and had a very strong, work ethic to provide for her children. In America, she was the first on both sides of, on her side of the family to move here, being a physician in the 60s and all of these things. And, so I didn't realize how difficult that was for her to say no to me. I didn't realize that she was up like for up for years, sitting by her phone, sleeping with her phone. This was pre-cell phone. So there was a wire attached to the phone at some points. And then there was a cordless headset that was in her bed with her, and I never saw that. I told myself, this bitch is not giving me, not like she doesn't love me because she should be giving me more. Like, what's wrong with her? Doesn't she know? I only saw things through my lens, of what I wasn't getting.
Right. Which is so natural. I mean, it's just very natural. Every kid, sees things through their perspective. And what's also natural is to re-examine and to self-examine and to grow and to see things from a different point of view. So you're doing all of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the program that's, helped me shift that view, right? I think that without this leading a self-examined life through this, it's just very selfish, and it can be selfish, self-centered, and self-pity are like the things that usually tend to drive me.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. For me, when I was out there drinking, it's not that I was just being selfish and self-centered and self-pity. It's just I wasn't participating in life. I was checked out. I was, selfish and self-centered and doing my own thing, sure. But when I come in the program, I'm now interacting and dealing with everybody else. And I'm not always behaving selfish and self-centeredly. I'm just behaving in a way that's like reactionary, or the way I've learned, or, I don't know. Speaking of like how optimism gets thrown around, and just put a happy on it. A lot of selfish gets thrown around in these rooms. And so much of it is learned behavior. It's not, we don't know a different way.
Well, I think I would add another layer, is that I was looking to survive, period.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I look through the lens of ACA as a child, I was looking for safety and for survival. And whatever that was, fill in the blank. My mother being the perfectionist, like, that's what love looks like. I need to be perfect. I need to achieve so that I can receive love. Like, that was all survival, right? And then the selfish, self-centered that our book, I think, talks through is survival, can also be looked through the lens of survival. I was trying to survive. No one showed me how to manage emotions.
Right.
All I knew was the art of manipulation. That's manipulating myself to look at
Right.
things, fantasy, looking through things through whatever glasses, rose glasses or whatever. And like, yeah, I think it could be selfish, self-centered, but I think through the lens of survival, like, yeah, 100.
Right. Right. And I was in a meeting yesterday where it was on the 7th step and it was really good, but people were talking about their character defects and how they still have some of these character defects and how they can, and I just was like, man, these were growth nodules that I grew. They're not character defects. I'm not a bad person. They were nodules that grew on my brain as survival tools. And now we're undoing the process of me learning I don't have to have them to get around anymore. And that takes some unlearning. And it doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong if, sometimes that pattern plays itself out.
Yeah. And I know you love the character interestings. I have been really drawn to like the defects or defenses, from this lens of safety and protecting myself, and those are very, they go really, really deep.
Right. Yeah, of course they go deep. I mean, these were like ground zero, laying it down, laying the tracks down and going, this is how we're going to operate. It's interesting. I'm doing this story right now, and I've been so proud of myself of how great this story is I'm doing. And it's about when I was 6 years old. And, when I find out that my stepdad, who I thought was my dad, when my mom tells me that's not your dad, that's just a dude. And then in that same amount of time, his parents kidnapped me. And I'm 6 years old, and they take me away to a farm. And when I ask about my mom, they tell me that she's just dead. And this really happened. And so I'm grieving my mother, but at the same time, I have this grandmother. You can hear that, can't you?
Yeah. We love it. We're in the wilds. This is real worlds.
The wilds of Los Angeles. So this grandmother, they take me away to a farm in Lukenbach, Texas, and she's fixing me peanut butter and jellies, and she asked me if I want the crust cut off. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, no one's ever asked me, what do I want? What does that have to do with anything? And I go ahead, she cuts the crust off. I watch her and I'm just like amazed. And there was discipline. I barely even watched TV when I was there. I had a set bedtime. I had 3 meals a day. And at a certain point, I come in, I hear my mom on the phone with her, and I'm like, my mom's alive. And my mom had to get a lawyer and a private detective to find me. And I eventually get back to my mom. And I get back to my mom, and I remember her making me a sandwich. And I go, oh, I'd like the crust cut off. And she's like, you don't like that. That's the best part. You love this. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's easier for her to not cut the crust off, And I'm like, which way was better? I mean, I know this woman kidnapped me, okay, but she went to a lot of effort, and which was I better off with? And there's something about the discipline and the no and the, someone asking you what your needs are and getting a chance to find out what they are, and growing up in a home where that's cultivated, that's encouraged, there's a safe place for it.
Oh, my heart hurts that this, I'm just envisioning little Misty, and then I'm also, how confusing, right? It's like, it sounds unreal, like,
it is unreal, and it's like the smallest moment, you know, and that's the thing. It's taken me all these decades to realize and to look back on and go, oh, that's the moment. Like, that's the good part. It's literally crust being sliced off a piece of bread. And that reframes the difference between somebody who I have to abandon myself for and somebody who says, what do you want?
Your sponsor.
Call you sponsor.
Call you
Call
sponsor.
your
Call your
sponsor.
sponsor.
Call you.
Bitch, call your sponsor.
Call your sponsor. Call.
Send us
your
an email with comments, questions, or concerns bcysponsor@gmail.com.
Don't forget to rate 5 stars.